10 greatest engineering achievements in history. Remarkable feats of engineering preceded the term engineer. The grass builders and visionaries evolved over the centuries from mathematicians, spontaneously, it would appear, across the globe. The first Great Wall in China, the pyramids of the Maya and Aztec cultures, the cities of the historic world, all were accomplished by engineering, though the builders and designers were unaware that they have been engineers. Over the centuries, engineering accomplishments have been directed on the worship of gods and heroes, the development of societal existence, and to in reality have fought the spirit of humanity. Right here are 10 of the best engineering achievements in history. 10. The Roman water distribution system. 3 centuries earlier than the beginning of the Common Generation, the Roman Republic, later the Empire, dispersed water for the duration of its dominions using a device of canals, pipes, reservoirs, standing tanks, and aqueducts. Totally through the use of gravity, the Romans distributed clean water to cities and towns, as well as to mines and farms. Some of the aqueducts still stand, architectural marvels constructed through laborers below the supervision of surveyors and master builders. Through the end of the 0.33 century, the town of Rome turned into service by means of 11 separate water conduits distributing water all through the metropolis, and in the case of the wealthier residents at once into their homes. Poorer residents resorted to public wells and baths. The empire became serviced with water systems as well, operated by way of each nearby governments in the nation. Natural springs have been the favorite sources of water. Easements had been established by using regulation on either facet of the conduit's pathway. The waterways were liberally provided with inspection points, which would nowadays be known as manholes, and the water turned into robotically inspected for purity. Lead pipes were utilized in some sections, even though using ceramic piping became desired, and sections of the aqueducts which had been of concrete had been covered with brick, to save erosion and to assist filter the water. The system turned into so nicely designed and built that there are sections nevertheless in use for the distribution of fresh water nearly 20 centuries once they were built. 9. The Cathedral of Hagia Sophia. Constructed as a Christian church and later converted to an Islamic mosque, the Cathedral of Hagia Sophia is today a museum and an iconic image of Turkey. At the beginning constructed in the 6th century, it has survived rioting, looting by conquerors, earthquakes, fires, and the ravages of time. Constructed mainly of masonry, it is without problems diagnosed by way of its nuque minaret and its huge dome. Constructed and rebuilt in many instances over time, it stays a symbol of Byzantine architecture, and for over 1,000 years Hagia Sophia became the largest cathedral within the International. Its layout became progressive in its day. The massive dome is ready upon a square base, supported via 4 triangle-formed pendentives within the rectangular's corners. The pendentives deliver the burden of the dome and direct it downwards, instead of outwards as the shape of the dome might in any other case dictate. Though the dome collapsed on multiple events, and changed into modified at some stage in rebuilding to include ribs which helped distribute its weight to the assisting partitions, each rebuilding strengthened and progressed the general structure of the constructing. Hagia Sophia is a museum of both the Christian and Islamic faiths, as well as the Byzantine Empire and the Crusades. It remains one of the most important masonry buildings inside the International in the 21st century. 8. The Leshan Buddha. Carved from unmarried stone and finished inside the early 9th century, the Super Buddha of Leshan stands over 230 feet tall. With a breadth throughout the shoulders of 92 feet, it smiles, the tallest statue of Buddha to be located inside the International. Carved from the sandstone of a cliff overlooking the junction of the Min and Datu rivers in Sichuan. On the whole, sandstone would be without problems eroded through the rainwater which has fallen at the statue over the centuries. that it hasn't is a tribute to the imaginative engineering which controls the go with the flow of water via and at the back of the statue, which has served to protect it since its final touch circa 803 CE. The Leshan Buddha consists of over 1,000 coiled hair buns of stone, which are positioned on the statue's head. They have been designed to collect rainwater, and to route it to a machine of drains and drain pipes which permit the water to flow via the statue's head and hands, draining out the again in the back of the stone close and away from the statue, protecting it from the results of abrasion. The machine turned into installed as a part of the original carving. At first protected by way of a timber refuge which turned into destroyed by the Mongols, the statue has stood exposed to the elements for 7 centuries, with its drainage system protecting it from erosion. These days the finest chance to the statue is the closely polluted air of the area, an aspect its designers could not have predicted. 7. The Erie Canal. Between the Hudson River and Lake Erie, land elevation will increase via about 600 feet. Canal locks of the day 1800 may want to boost or decrease boats about 12 feet, which meant that as a minimum 50 locks might be required to build a canal which related the Hudson with the tremendous lakes. President Thomas Jefferson called the assignment "little brief of madness." New York's Governor, DeWitt Clinton, disagreed and supported the task, which caused its detractors calling the canal DeWitt's ditch and different, much less moderate pejoratives. Clinton pursued the assignment fervently, overseeing the introduction of a 360-mile lengthy waterway across upstate Big Apple, which linked the upper Midwest to Big Apple Town. The towns of Buffalo, Big Apple, and Cleveland, Ohio, thrived as soon as the canal changed into finished, in 1825. The engineering demands of the canal covered the elimination of earth using animal strength, water strength using aqueducts to redirect water drift, and gunpowder to blast via limestone. Not one of the canal's planners and builders have been professional engineers, rather they were arithmetic teachers, judges, and amateur surveyors who found out as they went. Labor was furnished by improved immigration, on the whole from Ireland and the German provinces. Whilst it became completed in 1825, the canal turned into taken into consideration an engineering masterpiece, one of the longest canals inside the International. The Erie Canal's heyday became noticeably short, because of the improvement of the railroads, but it caused the boom of the Port of New York, and spurred the building of competing canals in other eastern states. 6. The Brooklyn Bridge. Suspension bridges of shorter spans throughout the Ohio River and at different locations. The project in Brooklyn and New York brought about a twist of fate which cost Roebling his lifestyles, and the engineering demanding situations succeeded to his son, Washington Roebling. Washington became bothered with the bends early in the construction, and became forced to oversee the project from his Big Apple apartment. The engineering challenges have been difficult. Timber caissons were sunk to the bottom of the East River, with men under them to excavate the river bottom till the caissons reached bedrock. Inside the case of the East Tower assisting the bridge, they by no means did. The tower rests on sand to these days. It took 14 years to complete the assignment, from 1869 to 1883. Often described as a suspension bridge, the structure is in reality a hybrid suspension cable-stayed bridge, with the burden of the span transferred by using twine cables to the towers, and thence to the bedrock on the Brooklyn side, and the sand over the bedrock at the Manhattan facet. Within the 21st century it consists of 6 lanes of traffic in addition to bicycles and pedestrians, although it no longer accommodates rail site visitors, nor commercial automobiles. It changed into considered the engineering masterpiece of the arena at the time of its completion, spanning nearly 6,000 toes, and linking the formerly separate cities of Brooklyn and Big Apple. 5. The Eiffel Tower. Gateway to the 1889 Global's truthful Contrary to famous notion, Eiffel did not design the tower, as an alternative buying the patent rights to the layout from engineers within his hire. He then signed a contract for the development of the tower appearing as himself, instead of as his organization, and later installation some other company to address the control of the tower and the earnings derived from it. The design of the tower became controversial from the outset, with artists and engineers complaining of its loss of aesthetic cost. It becomes stated that French author Madame Maupassant ate on the restaurant inside the tower after its crowning glory, as it turned into the best area in Paris from which the tower could not be seen. The ironwork was delivered to the website with holes for connecting bolts pre-drilled, and as they were installed the tower changed and added into proper alignment through the use of hydraulic jacks set up near the forefoot of the structure. Creeper cranes climbed the legs of the tower to erect each succeeding stage. The tower became declared complete in March 1889, at the time the tallest artificial structure within the world. It reached the height of 1,063 toes and remains the tallest structure in Paris. The tower had been dismantled in 1909, underneath the terms of the unique settlement. However, its usefulness as a radio transmitter gained it a longer lease on existence. By the cease of the 20th century, the concept of dismantling the tower became unthinkable. 4. The Panama Canal. The 51-mile length he reduced throughout the Isthmus of Panama was a dream for many a long time prior to the French beginning its creation in 1881. At some point of the building of the US's Transcontinental Railroad, device for use inside the Sierras become shipped from the east coast of the United States to Panama, transferred throughout the Isthmus, after which shipped to California. Engineers for years studied the constructing of a canal before the French tried to finish one. But the engineering difficulties blended with the climate and politics to thwart their efforts after more than decades. The US stepped in which the French failed, and completed the canal in 1914, after some other 10 years of work. The canal is absolutely two canals, linked on both ends with a synthetic lake, Lake Kirchen, position 85 feet above sea degree. Locks on the two canals improve or lower ships to or from the level of the lake, allowing them to traverse from Atlantic to Pacific, or vice versa. The canal permits ships to transfer from one ocean to the other in only underneath 12 hours. It was the engineering decision to desert the sea-degree canal layout preferred via the French, and as an alternative create Lake Kirchen via the constructing of Kirchen Dam, then the most important dam inside the world, and deploy locks to elevate and lower ships, which allowed the people to succeed in finishing the dam, which modified transport lanes and interocean visitors for all time. 3. The Channel Tunnel. For centuries the British Isles remained unconnected to the EU continent, a scenario which many Britons favored as vital to their national security. Numerous proposals for a tunnel underneath the channel had been positioned forth, however competition within England and France prevented any critical efforts. Tries to build tunnels for automobile site visitors have been began and stopped in the mid to past due 20th century. Subsequently, in the overdue 1980s, after the usual political and professional maneuvering among governments, groups, and financiers, paintings on the tunnels for high-paced rail trains got underway, already bearing the nickname by using which it smiles nice acknowledged today, the Chunnel. The tunnel became constructed from both facets, using huge tunnel uninteresting machines, TBMS, to method every other. The machines bore through what's broadly speaking chalk, though the various geology of the French shore created a few difficulties. Each the French and English used the remove-destroy for land reclamation initiatives. The tunnels were lined with each cast iron and bolstered concrete. Whilst completed, the tunnel furnished electrical energy to the trains running through overhead lines. The tunnel opened in 1994. And today permits for a trip from London to Paris in just over 2 hours. The tunnel additionally lets in for freight traffic handing over items synthetic all through Europe to be imported to Britain, and British goods to locate markets at the continent. 2. Burj Khalifa. The world's tallest structure as of 2019, Burj Khalifa is a combined-use skyscraper in Dubai, which changed into completed in 2009. The building was designed by using the same Chicago company which designed the Willis Tower, previously the Sears Tower, in that metropolis, and uses the equal engineering precept of bundled tubes at its middle to support the building's weight. The tubular layout allowed for considerably less metal for use in creation, with most of the constructing being strengthened concrete. Its spire alone, that is by and large decorative, could qualify it because the 11th tallest structure in Europe had been erected on the continent. The building has an outdoor swimming pool positioned on the 76th ground, with some other on the 43rd ground. A 300-room hotel is placed in the constructing, as well as corporate offices and personal residences. For those of a hardy charter, 2,909 steps connect the ground with the 160th. The observation deck is placed at the 124th ground. The encompassing park, called Burj Khalifa Park, is landscaped with wasteland flowers which are kept hydrated. The usage of water gathered by the constructing's cooling gadget, which itself is based at the cooler air of the higher part of the constructing to lower the temperatures of the decreased part of the shape.